Look up at the building across the street. The brick wall, the rooftop, the gap where a drainpipe meets the gutter. Nothing unusual. Just a wall. Except it isn't just a wall. Somewhere inside that structure, in a space smaller than a showbox, something is alive, and it's been there longer than you've lived on this street. Every city on Earth has a second population living inside it. Not in parks, not in trees, inside the buildings themselves, in spaces architects never designed for anything that birds quietly claimed decades ago and never gave back. Welcome to the Hidden Aviary. Today we're walking through 5 of these places: chimneys, billboards, bridges, parking garages, and abandoned towers. By the end, you probably won't look at a city skyline quite the same way again. Stick around for the last one, a bird that's been living inside human structures for so long it barely remembers any other way of life. Number 1, the chimney that breathes. In the eastern half of North America, there's a bird called the chimney swift. It looks like a curved sliver of dark wood with wings, and it spends most of its life in the air. Eating, even mating, on the wing. It rarely lands on a branch at all, because its feet aren't built for perching. They're built for clinging to vertical surfaces. 200 years ago, these birds nested almost exclusively inside massive hollow trees, old growth giants that took centuries to form a cavity wide enough for a nest. Then those trees disappeared. Logged, cleared, gone across most of the continent within a few generations. The swifts didn't disappear with them. They moved into chimneys. And here's the thing, a brick chimney is, structurally, basically the same shape as a hollow tree, vertical, dark, rough-walled, sheltered from wind and rain. The swifts adapted to it so completely that most cities now have buildings where, every evening at dusk in late summer, dozens to hundreds of chimney swifts spiral down into a single chimney to roost for the night, a behavior people call a swift tornado. Tourists stand on sidewalks filming it without knowing what they're looking at. It looks like smoke pouring backward into the building. If you've ever seen a chimney with no fire, no smoke, but something moving at the opening at dusk, that wasn't smoke. That was a building going to sleep, with a few hundred birds inside it.
Number 2, the falcon behind the billboard. Peregrine falcons are the fastest animals on the planet. They can hit over 240 miles per hour in a dive. In the wild, they nest almost exclusively on tall cliff faces, ledges high enough that nothing can climb up, with a clear vertical drop for the hunting dive. Cities, it turns out, are full of cliffs. We just call them skyscrapers, bridge towers, and billboard frames. Since the 1980s, peregrine falcons have been moving into city centers worldwide, nesting on narrow ledges behind massive advertising billboards, on cathedral spires, on the support structures of suspension bridges. To a falcon, a billboard isn't an advertisement. It's a roof, a flat overhang that keeps the rain off a ledge that happens to be exactly the right size. Some of the busiest billboards in major cities, lit up day and night, facing thousands of cars an hour, have had falcon nests behind them for years, completely unnoticed, because nobody ever looks at what's behind a billboard. The birds end up with a clifftop hunting platform in the middle of the richest hunting ground they'll ever find, a city full of pigeons. Number 3, the bridge full of mud houses. Cliff swallows build their nests entirely out of mud, pellet by pellet, each bird making dozens of trips to a muddy puddle and carrying back a single mouthful at a time. A single nest can take over 1,000 trips. In the wild, they build on the undersides of cliff overhangs, near water. A modern highway bridge gives them more or less the same setup, a flat horizontal underside, protection from rain, height above predators, and usually water nearby for both mud and insects. Some bridges host colonies of hundreds, even thousands, of nests, all built by birds whose ancestors, a few generations back, would have built on a canyon wall 100 miles from any human structure. The thousands of cars passing overhead don't bother them. What they needed was the shape of a cliff. The bridge gave them that shape, and they moved in.
Number 4. The parking garage pigeons inherited. Pigeons get treated like background noise in cities, so common that people stop seeing them. But the reason they're everywhere isn't random. It comes down to what pigeons originally were. The domestic pigeon's wild ancestor is the rock dove, a bird that nests on cliff ledges and in cave entrances, narrow horizontal ledges, often in semi-darkness, often with an open approach for landing and taking off. A multi-story parking garage is, structurally, a stack of cliff ledges with a roof on top. Dim light, flat horizontal surfaces, support beams that create ledge-like nooks, wide open entrances for flying in and out. To a rock dove, none of that looks strange. It just looks like an unusually large, very convenient cliff. Which is why pigeon colonies in cities tend to cluster in parking structures, train station rafters, and the upper levels of stadiums, spaces that, geometrically, do the exact same job a limestone cliff face did for their ancestors 10,000 years ago. Number 5. The tower that never stopped being a cliff. And that brings us to the last one, probably the oldest urban resident on this list. Because it never really had to adapt at all. The barn owl earns its name honestly. Long before barns existed, barn owls nested in hollow trees and rock crevices. Barns, tall, dark, quiet buildings with high rafters and small gaps, turned out to work just as well, only bigger and drier. Barn owls moved in so early, and so thoroughly, that today most barn owls have never nested anywhere except inside something humans built. Old grain silos, abandoned factory towers, church belfries, the upper levels of stadium light towers, anywhere tall, dark, quiet, and full of small gaps, a barn owl reads as a cliffside cavity. A barn owl sitting silently in the rafters of an empty warehouse at 2 p.m. while forklifts move below isn't an animal that adapted to human spaces. From its point of view, it never left the cliff. We just built the cliff around it. So next time you're standing in a city, under a bridge, in a parking garage, next to a chimney with no fire, remember this. Somewhere within a few hundred feet of you, in a gap you've never looked at twice, something is roosting, nesting, or raising young, in a space that, after millions of years of evolution, it considers home. Tell me in the comments, have you ever found a bird nest somewhere completely unexpected, inside a building, a sign, a vent? I want to hear where. I read every one. See you in the next one.